This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then why do you need it? Right? We'll talk it. We'll talk. We will talk.
Okay, we got, is it on?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna call to order a joint meeting of the select board and the finance committee at 12:01 PM. We have all the select board members and finance committee members present here. And I think I'm gonna moderate this meeting, right, Michelle?
I think that would be
Okay.
good, because I'm a little bit out of touch. as
Okay,
to-
and we're gonna have to be, everyone please stick to, the order of speaking, because there's a lot of people here and we don't want to get
Today is 2/1.
out of order. So first, we're meeting with Police Chief Brian. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Basically, my understanding of the first thing, I don't know, do we have an update on the contract at all?
Yes, I'm ready to sign it for today.
Okay,
I'll sign it.
as
get it to
is.
you.
Okay. Let's first tackle the budget, which is really why we're here today. And I think the only items that have been noted on the budget at all were the full-time officers 1 and 2 raises at the police cruiser for $64,919.77, and the 3 radios for the trucks coming in at $25,620. Just to have a discussion about those capital purchases. Does anyone have any questions about, for Brian, about the budget proposal?
Fine, the only thing I had from my notes, you were gonna look at the uniform cost.
The what?
When we had the meeting with Brian,
I just.
we talked about the uniform cost.
Uniform
Cost, did you have that covered? That, my memory serves me right, that number hasn't been checked.
Yeah, I think we're comfortable with,
What you got in there?
yes.
With your FTEs, full-time
Yeah.
equivalents?
Yeah.
So everyone, how many people are there altogether? I couldn't figure that. Yeah, just not bodies, not full-time, part-time, total bodies.
There's 7 of us.
Okay. So 2,400?
28.
2,800 will cover what you need,
Yes.
so.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is not exactly budget related, but have you been happy with the hybrid electric cruiser? Is it been, I mean, I'm assuming you wouldn't be wanting another one if you weren't, but it's worth asking.
No, I love it.
Okay,
I love it. I wasn't sure if I was gonna like it at first.
that's what I'm asking.
I think it's great. It has everything that a gas car would have, all the benefits, plus the savings on the fuel.
And it's been okay on the roads, it's okay with acceleration when you need it, all this like,
Oh, everything is great, yeah.
alright, good to hear, but
Yeah, he
I
said-
had to ask, cause I'm
Right.
really curious about how they perform.
Yes, no, I love it.
Do you have a question, Eileen?
Well, was that the whole budget, or can I ask about the radio?
You can ask about anything. I just was,
Anything?
Anything on the police budget, Eileen.
I just was,
Where's my problem?
I just was identifying that, the reason Brian's here today was just because those are the, larger requests, being the cruiser and the radio.
Just so I understand it, the radios are gonna replace some of the cell phone costs, so there's a budget switch?
So these radios, so 2 of these radios,
Right, that's what they look like.
so will be 2 of them. Then they go on the officers. And 1 of the radios will go into the, new cruiser.
So it's for who's on duty at the time, or they're assigned by person?
So both of our full-timers will have brand new radios and, there'll be 1 to rotate
So the
between.
cruiser is the part-time rotating?
No, the portables. So I have a portable, the 2 full-timers will have their own
No, I
portables.
understand, the one in the cruiser will be assigned, the part-time people get the cruiser?
It's part of the cruiser.
It's part of the car,
It's the
so
actual radio.
So the part-timers will not have a radio?
no, they will. There's going to be 1 extra radio for the part-timers to rotate.
Okay.
Because right now you have that portable and you have another portable.
Right, that was mine,
Yeah.
and then the chief's, and when the chief retired, one of the full-time officers got that radio. So now we have we need one for our new full-timer, and one to basically replace all of our older ones. And some of them are.
And there's no impact on the cell phone cost?
I think, Eileen, I think what you're seeing is, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah, please.
but is Gareth and Brian had both had cell phone plans. Gareth left, I think Brian is gonna be the only one with a cell
That's
phone.
what I didn't understand, why there's
So
not, right,
there will be a
Thank you.
reduction
okay.
in telecommunications because of his phone and another device that was.
I thought,
canceled.
I might have mistaken, I thought all full-time had that, but they confused it with radio.
No.
So, okay,
So the only cell phone plan for the police is Brian's.
sure.
Yes.
The question that, the overarching question that I have about the cruiser is, if for one reason or other, the town wasn't to purchase this cruiser this year, would you operate with the two newest cruisers, or would the oldest cruiser also be part of the regular operation? Is there kind of a contingency plan where you could operate the department? I mean, I know by your request that you'd like 3 newer cruisers, but is there a contingency plan where you operate with, the 3 cruisers that you currently have, and what would that look like?
I think if we had to put it off, we could survive. Just based on the cruiser that we got just several years ago, from then until now, we've seen a $10,000 increase in price. And that's only been 2 years, so, just that cost savings alone would be worth getting it now. Plus, by the time we get the new car, it's probably gonna be at least 2 years out. At a minimum, if we waited. And going forward with the new officers, I think we have to have 3 cars now. I know that's been a question, but, we've gotta be able to spread out the miles and the hours on 3 different vehicles, or we'll be in here more often getting, asking for new cars more often. Where I think if we have the 3 cars, we can spread those hours and the mileages out. Because we're constantly driving, we're constantly either sitting on the road or driving around town, so the wear and tear, just spreading it out over three cars.
So what I'm, as a follow-up, what I'm getting is that if the town isn't able to purchase the new cruiser this year, or puts it off a year, or while you're waiting, because it's gonna be, like you said, an amount of time from when we order it to when we actually get it, you're probably gonna be operating with all 3 cruisers, including 1260 is the oldest?
1270.
1270 is the oldest?
Yeah.
So you would be operating, using it, with all 3 cruisers?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then the idea is that the idea being replace it to avoid it breaking down and having higher maintenance costs?
Correct.
So I got a question, what is the life expectancy of a police cruiser for your force?
I mean, it's hard to tell. I know the chief spent a lot of money on his car last year. I think he changed the rack and pinion in it, which was close to $1,000. And his is 2016, so we're already looking at,
7 years,
7 years.
possibly 8 by the time you replace it.
Right.
What's the mileage like?
Well, I think,
It's 63,000
Heavy
about.
wear and tear.
yeah, but you also have hours on it, that vehicle measures hours running in miles, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, just because it's got 62,000 miles, if you're sitting on the side of the road for for 3, 4 hour, 5 hours, doing radar, that's gonna add to the wear and tear as well.
Do you know offhand? Probably not, but like, what kind of hours do they run, and what do you expect?
There's a formula online that you can convert, it's probably more opinion than fact, that you can convert per hour, certain amount of hours equals certain amount of mileage.
Right.
There's a formula on there.
Okay.
That, you can take a look at it,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Michelle Miller.
It seems like we're kind of trying to decide between, uncertain and ongoing operating expenses or making this capital purchase, but, it's not clear to me what the actual dollar savings, for example, in the operating with the fuel efficiency,
Mhm.
would actually mean. I mean, there's just a lot of moving parts. So it's kind of, gonna come down to, I think, that we're gonna have all of these kinds of requests
Mhm.
to consider, and in the end, we're gonna have to decide between them.
Right.
But I think, all the points that you make are quite valid, and we just have to decide which way we wanna go.
Mhm.
So I think that'll probably be a topic of discussion.
Just to put it in context, I think you probably already know that, like, we're trying to keep the budget from.
Sure.
Yeah, because we're really,
Of course.
we're really hoping to invest in people this year.
Mhm.
So that might mean some hard, and I'm not saying this is the one that's gonna be cut, I'm just saying that's why it's even like a serious topic of
Mhm.
conversation. I mean, it should always be, but the other question I had is, what happens to the old vehicle? Well, obviously you don't offload one of the old vehicles to get the new vehicle, but what is the plan for, I assume it would be the oldest or highest mileage vehicle that would be moved on?
Yes, yeah, I'd have to ask around, I think, we would probably either trade it in or sell it outright to someone.
Okay.
And what do
Through
you,
municipal, right? Usually.
Yeah.
and what do you expect that to be worth?
Good thing.
It's hard to tell, because, but
I'm
police,
thinking maybe.
police cars aren't worth anything.
Well, but that Suburban just got 15,000.
I know.
So you never know.
Sure.
Yeah, well, you don't know, but that only had 10,000 miles on it or something like that, 10 or 50, I don't know the exact, they had very low miles.
I have one other question. Do your miles and hours of use include commuter miles for the force? I mean, do people take the vehicle home?
I do.
Yes, but only
Yes.
you.
Officer Nelson takes hers home as well, but she, lives on the border in Great Barrington, and, she has a lot of on-call stuff for me, and, she has on-call shifts overnight as well.
Okay. I just wanted to put that into the mix.
Yeah,
That was gonna.
I mean, we're talking 2 miles back and forth,
I just needed to know.
right?
We're just.
So, another question, so let's say this isn't the year to replace 1270.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that's the case, but if it isn't, does that radio cost go down by the new radio in the cruiser, because there still is an older version in 1270 currently?
Yes.
Okay.
So yes, the radio, we would be asking for 2 radios instead of 3.
The 2 portables instead of the.
Correct.
There's no benefit to buying three together, same.
No,
Okay,
no.
different question, and if the lead time on the vehicle is 2 years,
Mhm.
and we wanna put in an order, is there like a down payment or amount we should do now to plan ahead when we look at capital?
I don't think you can put anything in
We
until
don't do down payments.
it gets approved.
Right, we'd have to have a contract signed, if we're gonna purchase this, so we'd have to know that the funds were allocated.
Is it true that we don't usually pay till we get the vehicle?
We pay
Is that
for-
policy or is that, practice?
They're not gonna let us sign the contract unless they know that we have approved
Who's
funds.
not going to?
The
Dealership.
dealership.
Well, if we have a letter from the town that says we have approved financing, I don't know if
But you
it-
don't. You
but
have to go to
it
town
could be in
meeting.
next year's budget, we're making good on it, we've never reneged
Well, I
on it.
don't think it's really a question that we need to discuss.
Right, but I'm just saying, but there might be a way of figuring out, if it's gonna be 2 years, so you're saying it doesn't matter, in 2 years, it could be 25,000 more,
Right.
right? So like, I'm wondering, so would it be in that case a allocated but not spent and a rollover? Like, is it better to do that if we know we're gonna need one to lock in a price, or to wait to see what happened to us?
We can't, it's a state contract, so the price is whatever it is that year.
No matter when you sign it,
And we can't sign it until town meeting has approved the funds.
and it takes 2 years no matter what to get it.
No,
Well-
so it takes about a year,
From the
but if
same,
you're pushing it off, it's going to be,
another year.
Right.
So
I just
depending
want-
on what supply and demand looks like in
Right.
a year's time, but right now, from what they're telling me, it's close to a year.
so a 7-year vehicle will then be 9 years old.
That's what I'm trying to get at, so is there, and then we have to wait another year.
Well, if we got it in May, they're saying we'd have it in a year and a half, if I'm calling May half a year. If we deferred till 2024, then it's 2.5 years,
I understand.
assuming delivery time's a year.
Let's not discuss it now, but can we put it on a list of open items about discussing like financing or like actual expenses, like a case like this where it can be, we can prove we have the money, but we're not gonna spend it until the next year, but because of the purchasing contract, it's not, no fault of our own.
That's how it is, so if it went on the town meeting warrant this year, he would order it as soon as it was approved. And then if you decide to borrow, the treasurer is not going to borrow until we give them the truck.
But-
So you're not gonna see it making a payment until probably 2 years.
That's what I'm saying.
Right, so but you'd have to put it on the warrant this year. You'd have to say, yes, we're going to replace a cruiser.
But Jim, I think we should
Well,
just
I
discuss
think
it later, you see what I'm trying to say?
You can put it on the warrant, then you choose the timing of. when you
That's what
want
I'm
it.
saying, instead of ending up in a situation where we have
You
9
get
year
some
car
food demand
crying.
calls in August,
Right,
it's in
right.
2024.
But
In
it's
the file.
still in the town budget.
Right,
Right.
But we can have discussion about it. So are we keeping a list like that? Should I keep a list like that?
Keep a
Write them
list
down?
like
Go for it, keep a list.
yeah, you keep it.
I'll keep a list, people.
You got anything else for
What
us?
do you call that?
Fran?
Capital.
Capital financing. You updated a couple.
Yes, I did update a few things, on the budget.
This is on the first page of the thing.
The software, so I think I talked about it.
No, did he give you a sheet that looks like this?
Number 2?
This no, that was
No,
not.
I did
you
not.
give- Oh, you didn't give one, okay, so he's going to be giving you new numbers. for some of these
Gotcha,
lines.
alright, go.
Okay, so for the IMC police software, 8,000, so right now. Okay, it should say $18,760.
For the 24 requested,
Yes, and that's software licenses and agreements,
you repeat that number, 18.
$18,760.
This is in police expenses.
This is in software licenses.
5385.
Oh, no, you have to look at that one.
This,
This one here should be number 2 in
Can I have one
I'll
of
figure it
those?
Why
Why
don't I just give them the
535.
updated one, yeah, well, yeah.
You have one?
I get
You
one.
don't, you do?
I think it's Michelle that doesn't.
This does not have, he's giving you the updated numbers.
I could show
So,
Frank.
Frank, I think we talked in the last meeting about doing that transfer for IMC, and transferring our software up to the dispatch center.
Right.
And the cost of that is about $4,000. And every additional year going forward, there's gonna be about a $1,500,
Annual fee.
decrease.
Decrease.
Why?
Because the sheriff's department is taking over, maintenance for us, for our operating system. And, we'll see that every year, but to do the transfer, it's gonna cost us $4,000. And I just got that quote this morning.
So it's like a transition fee after which the maintenance fee will actually be lower for us.
You know, this probably should have been done 10 years ago, when it was first rolled out and every town had done it. So we're just playing catch up here.
For those that weren't at the budget meeting, this upgrade will allow the officers more safety in the car, because they're gonna have access to all arrest data and stuff. Right now, if they pull someone over, they only have Monterey data, so
Oh.
if Scott got pulled over in 3 other towns before he came through Monterey, they wouldn't know that.
Right, so this is gonna
Hey, Scott, good to know.
Yeah.
We're
much
going
more
too
helpful.
slow, we're going 20 and a 50.
Okay.
be,
Okay.
Okay, what else? You said there were 2.
the police part-time officers, I added some more money to that for, overtime, which hasn't been accounted for yet. So that is at 41,000.
Even?
I have a question about that. There is a proposal from, and I don't know what we're doing on it, we're not there yet, from the Parks Department about some kind of parking situation at the lake and part-time officers. His request does not even encounter that yet, right?
I don't,
I think
my
that'll come out of their budget.
understanding of their request was not to have police officers, but to hire someone called a
Okay.
beach monitor.
Yeah, they want to do it.
Okay, so it wouldn't be
I think
reflected.
they're unrelated.
Okay, alright, just making sure.
Okay, so
So that's a-
41,000 for part-time officers.
Right, so that's in the part-time officer line. And last year, we're going from 53,025 down to 41,000.
And that's with 3.8% COLA.
And that, right, those numbers, I think we're at 21 an hour. And this year, we're going up to 25.95 with the COLA increase.
Okay.
And like I said before, most of our increases is coming from, that full-time officer line. Just because only half of it was appropriated last year, and now this year we're funding for both officers for the entire year, so that's why the increase looks as big as it does.
Yeah, it just basically swapped. The 2 full-times for last year were equal to the, you know what I'm saying?
To one full, right,
Yeah, so,
right, so basically we're adding a whole full-timer.
next.
So other than that, it's not really the finance committee, but we do have it on here. The contract, you're gonna sign it as we
Yeah,
send it
so
to you?
I'll have that signed and, send it off to you guys today.
Okay.
Thank you, chief.
Do we
You
wanna,
didn't make any amendments to it?
No, that's good.
So what, you have the last version, right?
yeah,
I'll have them print it, I'll have them sign it, and then have you sign the one copy.
Sure.
Like these.
I think, I can double check, but when I sent it last to you was about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I think Melissa, you have that too, but if you don't,
No, I didn't.
we'll get that.
Yeah.
Alright, good, thank you.
So basically, just to wrap up, our only open item for the chief is item 1, the police cruiser, the timing of the purchase of that and how to do it.
The cruiser, but then
We got,
if we decide not to purchase the cruiser, we're also going down by 1, the APX 8500.
And one more, so I'm gonna just leave it on the list so we don't forget it, right?
Well, we might have to, would we have to tweak up the maintenance costs?
well, he's got the maintenance cost $500, so what would he do?
Yes, but that was on the basis, I guess
So,
this maintenance would be the
let's-
same
Let's
this year
cross that
because it would
bridge
be
when
the
we come
same
to it, I'm
vehicle.
just
Okay, no
bookmarking
problem.
it so we don't forget it. Open questions, right?
Next.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Brian.
Chief,
Yeah, we're not happy about having to make the calls either, by the way. Just,
Yeah,
at least
no,
I
of
can
course.
only speak for myself, right?
I'm just telling you
I know,
what I need.
and,
Everybody's
yeah,
doing their job.
No, you did, thank you
Yeah,
for your thorough
course.
research and really, doing what we asked, which is a zero-based budget.
And,
And going back to grants, we appreciate that.
reach out if you need anything, I'm here for you. If you have any questions. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
All right.
February 1st.
Oh, yeah, I know. In the Monterey News, Brian,
Yes,
I
you
need that
can
news.
you can do a listing like they do in the New Marlboro Notes. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen theirs yet.
It's really great reading.
Oh, good.
I watched Sandusky too, to see what they can.
I tell you.
I'll have to check it out.
Of what
What
they,
then?
of what they do.
Yeah, well, it's just a list, you know, a stop, a cat, a dog,
Oh,
a shooting.
like their blotter report.
Yeah.
No, I got them
Oh,
all
okay.
cut.
I
Yeah,
mean, that way people really know
yeah,
if you want them to, you know, what your job entails a lot.
yeah,
Which is invisible.
yeah, no, I'm definitely interested in that.
What do we got?
Okay.
Do you have a number?
Thank you.
We have Jim
Hang on, I have-
Hunt, you,
Hi, Jim.
Hey, Jim.
Gotta get some water.
alright, it seems they were taking a short little break here for half a minute. We'll be right back with you.
Yeah, the last one you sent me, Justin, said like,
Yeah, it would have been 2 weeks ago, I probably sent it that Wednesday night or Thursday. And I gave him a track changes and a clean version, but if he's accepting it, we'll just print out the clean one.
Thank you.
Is there anything on here that's different from the last time I would have looked at this?
Did you get our list of questions?
I'm sorry.
You
no,
cringe?
I took off, we didn't get, nobody sent me any questions.
Oh, okay.
I didn't think there
Oh,
were, but I
Frank,
wanted to
Frank
ask
did
before I
just be
started.
gone.
Yeah, I know.
We're waiting for Michelle to come back, yeah?
Sure, yeah.
Oh, is that the new one?
Yes, you bet we will.
What else is that? Oh, just off the record, on the record, was a nice road surface on the photos. That new stuff works, I think. What do you think?
Hugh Plywood Circle.
No, you don't do the circle, let's not go there.
Yeah.
But the roads, I mean, it really melted quick, wasn't icy, right? Were you happy with it? Because it was a new product he was trying out.
We did use a little bit different product for the fog seal over on Hoop Road this year.
Yeah, and what do you think?
And, I would say it's pretty comparable to the other products that we're using. It's a little bit easier application,
That's
sets
good.
up a little quicker and all that.
Dun-dun-dun-dun.
The benefit I've noticed with all of the roads that we did last year is that when the precipitation melts and mixes
Yeah.
with the salt, it turns to a brine.
It goes off.
It has a better layer of
Yeah.
sheen across the road, which allows us to remove the frozen stuff mechanically.
Yeah, better, right, it was really to the nose.
But she used that salt.
So, the product you used last year was a more expensive product though, right? And we ended up, do I remember, like, how do you rank it
The
based on the?
fog sealing product was, they were all pretty similar.
Okay.
A couple of, you know,
Okay, so it's not really.
Yeah, we have work.
that comes off the county.
Reward.
And it was, we used RAP funds to pay for that, so.
That I remember.
Alright, so thanks for joining us, Jim. So, same thing, we were just discussing the budget. You're also in charge of the transfer station budget, but I don't think there are any real questions about that, this is really about the highway budget. I think the only things that stood out, immediately were the raises for the four, highway 1 through 4. And then the 3 capital requests are the fuel management system for 17,000, the one-ton pickup for 78,000, and the tractor for roadside mowing for 96,000. I'll just start off by asking a little bit more, I haven't learned much about the fuel management system. What does it do, and do you think that it's, how would you prioritize it as something that the town should get?
So at this point, just because we're trying to,
Be conservative.
be conservative, thank you. I don't see the payback right away with a system like this, to help us meet our fiscal goals. The plus sides of this is card access, so you have added security. Not that we have any issues that way, but it's better accountability for what fuel's going in what vehicle, who's putting it in there. You couldn't access fuel without
the card that's in that specific vehicle. And then, of course, tracking as we move forward. And you know, the reporting part of it would be much easier and much more accurate for future budgeting. For the amount, for the $17,000 that we were quoted verbally, that's a lot of money to spend up front. I'd be willing to take that off the capital.
I was thinking of a nanny cam.
Yeah, well, we do have cameras.
Yeah, I was saying, because that, I think that's really the point. If we notice high usage or a problem, we can go back and look who's fueling up what, because that's really what we're trying to track.
Okay, so
So-
that's great, we don't even have to worry about that right now.
Thank you.
Do you wanna carry on with the capital ones, or?
Yeah, well, we're there.
Yeah,
With the
so
fuel?
the roadside mowing tractor, the old tractor is in need of a lot of repairs.
Right.
So this is a request for a tractor and mowing attachment.
So this would replace a 1994 model year. It was purchased used maybe 6 years ago. I don't have that exact date. Last summer, it spent more time in the shop than it did actually out on the road. So it takes us a lot longer it extends that mowing season for us because we're waiting for parts and repairs. Last year, we did some exhaust work on it, water pump, some work to the air conditioner, and some welding fabrication for it.
What do you anticipate having to do to it if you continue to keep it?
For the first thing we have to do is we have to get rid of the vermin in the cab.
Oh
Get the
dear,
Air conditioning system replaced so that we can actually have some climate, because that's, you go from any farm equipment, that thing generates a tremendous amount of heat, which affects the driver fatigue. And, we have to do something with the exhaust system because the fumes in the cab are just.
so in other words, it's faulty or needs to be replaced, or needs to be replaced, so you,
And so, like I said, it's a 1994 model year, so it's.
so what do
pretty
you
exciting.
think that would cost?
See, you my daughter?
I don't have a number.
No,
I
I'm
mean,
just,
I can get
it's
it,
once
I mean,
again, it's
off
with
the top
those
of my
things
head,
like the
It's off the
operating.
top of my head, the way things are, I mean, it could be tens of thousands of dollars to,
Oh.
you know.
But could we get a cost written estimate to get this thing up to speed so we could do a comparison? Do we wanna spend 20,000 for repair, or do we wanna spend whatever, 90-some thousand for a new one?
Yeah, have you been doing it sounds like maybe you've been doing all the work yourselves
We've been
on
doing
the
the work
tractor.
in-house, yeah.
Who would you go to?
It would do our Pine Plains, New York, Pine Plains Ford.
So I said Pine Plains tractor, that's exactly what I said before.
They've been pretty good to us for parts. We have some pretty capable people over there. But again,
It's
it's
a good whipped
expensive.
cream at Stewart's in Georgia.
Anytime you go over to it, you know, to a dealer, you're talking
I
about.
think I'll company.
I wonder if they'll even be able to get parts.
You can, tractors.
Yes, they will.
Would it be
For a Ford, it's a Ford, right?
So in other words,
Tractor
how-
share, Marlboro and Sheffield.
They may have been at one time, I
We have
know
one
that Marlboro
conversation.
and Sheffield were, and I believe that Marlboro now has their own fleet of mowing equipment.
Yeah, New Marlboro has a cabbed Kubota four-wheel drive.
They have,
We
actually,
went
they
in
have
with
two
two
that I know of.
towns to buy a tractor for mowing. Didn't we ever agree to that?
I don't think that actually happened.
Like
It was
8 years
just
ago?
Sheffield and New Marlboro that did it.
Right.
So how did we not get on that?
We were concerned about sharing and
About the
maintenance
time
and
frame.
who would get it right. There was a lot of concern.
What model is this current tractor?
It's a 1994 Ford 6640.
and so all the mowing did occur this
It did.
year?
It did.
And it didn't, I mean, it seemed like it was done. You did all that whacking on the side, right?
We actually have a contractor
For
that
that,
does the
so
string.
you just really do the low down mowing.
Correct. All the wide stuff. It's about, when you set out with the two mowers, it's 2 to 3 solid weeks, weather depending. And that'll happen at least twice and often 3 times in a season.
The two mowers being the loader and the
Correct.
Ford
The
tractor.
small loader and the Ford tractor. The bigger machine does high work and brush work, that's what that's designed for. And that's what we do before. I mean, we do use it to cut some grass and stuff behind the guardrails. It's actually referred to as an over-the-rail mower, is
So, do you know, did you already answer this question, but just how much you think you might have spent on maintenance for that this year?
Geez, I have that, I
And
don't have it
repairs.
with me, I'll get it for you.
But I mean, if we had that as a baseline to say, well, we probably have to spend this amount at least, then we'd know whether what we were getting into maybe.
I know I have that written out somewhere.
Well, I'm pretty sure you told us when we asked you at the meeting, but I don't remember.
No, he said he'd give it back to us with the number, I never saw it. And then earlier in the year, he gave me he dumped something, it was like $3,000 or something.
Right,
I'd have to go
right,
back.
that was parts and then.
Well,
Yeah, if that was like an
You
August,
can
that
just
was
look
really.
it up on the
I keep
ledger,
a
right?
more accurate.
Yeah, but the ledger doesn't break out, I got the general ledger here, but it does not break out. You'd have to do it by which vendor you know.
Right.
Okay, so he's probably got 50, 60 entries between maintenance and machinery stuff, so I don't know which one is which.
Right.
You know, he's got Kane and Auto Supply, you could have bought anything off of
Is
him.
it fair to say that, we need really more, just a
Well, I
little bit
think
more
we-
information to be able to, and, you know, like, if it's a capital thing, are we going to, borrow the money?
So,
So without getting too far into it, there is another funding source that I'm looking into that I'll share with you in the coming days.
Okay.
If that's okay with you all.
okay, but is it chapter 90 or no?
I'm waiting for a different version of
Oh, I
this
see.
tractor that would fall into that category,
Uh-huh.
so it would fit those requirements.
Yeah.
And I'm just waiting for that. That proposal was supposed to have been in yesterday.
Looking at it.
I think.
Okay,
Yeah,
I may look at, because of the vendor has been not so responsive, so I may even look at a completely different.
can I just piggyback on that?
yes, you can.
Frank and I, really Frank, was looking at chapter 90 funds because we have quite a big rollover amount in those funds and building up quite a reserve. So any way that we can look into digging into those, finding out what is eligible and to redefining would be, I don't know where we do that work, if we've done that, but that would be a good source of infusing some funds.
I think you need to listen, because Jim and I had a conversation yesterday about why that's building up and the projects that are on the slate that are gonna draw absolutely on those funds. Perhaps you could share that with us.
If you want to do that now, or you want to do that after we're done with the finance?
Can I make one last comment on the tractor?
Sure.
So depending how the other funding source goes, do you think Pine Plains would, I don't know if you'd have to bring it to them, or would they come out and could they estimate to really
Do a house
solve
call?
all the problems?
I would have to have them come look at it
Yeah.
and do a good hard look. you know.
And not to just make it get by, but what would it cost to fix the exhaust problems, AC,
Actually fix it,
and
Making
really
an
cool
operation.
just get it to 100%?
not Band-Aid, put a server.
I know at this point it needs a high pressure fuel pump, just mechanically, you know, some oil leaks and that sort of stuff, so there's, the list, just as you think about it. You know, I mean, like I say, it's a 29-year-old piece of equipment, you know?
God bless it.
But it would be worth, I think it's worth
Yeah, we need to.
getting
need to
an
know.
estimate so that we can compare, okay, and if they do this, and we think we can get 4 years or 5 years out of it, it's one thing if it's 20, it's another thing if it's the price of the tractor.
Well, sure.
So-
You know.
Would then, it be time to turn our attention to the one-time pickup?
Yes, yeah, that's, so where we're leaving the tractor is, once you hear back another funding source, if that doesn't come through, then you're gonna, look into or ask Pine Plains to do an estimate to really get that thing to 100%. And then we'll go from there, based on what that number comes out to be.
So wait, what should I put on the list?
Sounds good.
What's your list?
The list is things we have to follow up on so we don't forget.
So
Well,
that's it.
Yeah, so what would you call that? Just
There's a
track.
follow-up on it.
Maintenance versus new tractor.
Roadside
I
mowing.
just want to know what I.
A rebuild.
Rehab versus new
Oh,
tractor.
that's what I would refer.
Yeah.
Tractor refurbishment.
So just one other question, it may seem silly, but Jim has said that the vermin problem in there
Oh.
is really bad.
It's pretty
And-
disgusting.
And looking
Nice.
online,
Is
yeah,
it nice?
you can, there's like health issues that you can
Yeah.
get from
Yeah.
what they're breathing in there, so, I mean, he's saying to fix that problem, you'd have to refurbish the cab as well, you know, I mean.
Well, that's part of
Well,
the
let's
estimate.
just.
So
100%.
I just wanted you guys
And
to
in the
know
future,
that,
put
that.
dryer sheets in, the vermin do not like dryer sheets.
They ate those,
You gotta keep
they
replacing
made a
them.
nest out of them in my camper.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely get an estimate on what it would take to get it to 100% usable and safe. Yeah, great.
Because it's not worth partialing it. If we're
Right.
gonna do it, let's make it a usable thing or make a different decision.
Okay, 1 ton pickup.
2018 model year. This kind of goes in line with next year's capital replacement, which if we put this off 1 year, which I think, we probably could get away with it and be able to keep the thing running. It's been a fairly reliable truck, been running boards. We cut them off for the Sawzall the other day because they were hanging off it. A couple little things, we just put tires on it. It's got fairly recent brakes. My concern is that next year, cost increase.
Yeah.
And the 2016 model year that's on, the 550 that's on capital for next year, we are, well, according to my spreadsheet, I gotta add a couple more things here, but we're 12/6 deep in that truck and repairs now, and we're 7 months into our fiscal year. So then I got about $1,000 worth of parts coming for it, for the hydraulic system. So, could you repeat that figure? 12/6,
12,600.
just the parts that were into that truck right now.
But what part, were those mechanicals, or was that the computer stuff from the Ford deals you used?
That was, new turbo, oil cooler lines, transmission cooler lines. We rebuilt the front end in it, front brakes.
It sounds like a brand new truck.
What happened?
I mean, you're always gonna have to find a balance of doing maintenance for purchasing new. Now, purchasing new, prices are gonna go up, but financing's gonna go up too. So, you spend 15, 20,000 doing it, or you spend 180. I mean, it's a balance.
It's a gamble, but that, again, that's why we do these, that's why we have these capital plans. We rate those at a 7-year truck, when we know truthfully that, with the way the supply is, we're getting them replaced in 8, maybe 9 years. And we also know with mechanics, things like that we invest these repairs, right now, we're just trying to keep things running so we can keep the roads plowed, really.
The truck you're talking about, the big repairs on, is not
The one
this
that.
one.
Correct, so my thought is does that double us up for next year? When that truck come next year, it's gonna be pretty tired.
Like the
Well,
police
if
You
we
see
go
what I'm
back, if we go back to your 1 ton, is that being used for heavy, it's not doing plowing, right?
It is doing plowing,
Is there any hardware on the truck to do plowing?
it plows all the time.
You haven't seen them plow?
All the time. Matter of fact, 2016 is broke down waiting for a hydraulic pump, and if we have snow, that truck will be out a lot.
Did you mean 1,260 or 12,600?
12,000.
Okay, just wanted to double check.
One
that.
bill from the Ford
Yeah.
garage is $5,200
Okay.
for the turbo.
And this might be the replacement tractor that could be covered by the chapter 90 funds that we're.
No,
No,
This
we're
is a
talking-
truck.
Okay, the truck, short-term,
Yeah.
So,
okay, sorry.
If
You're all
we're
paying
talking
attention.
about our plowing vehicles, we have 2 newer M2s
Correct.
and then 3 F550s.
Correct.
And the truck that you're speaking about is the oldest F550.
No, this is.
No, it's the
this
one
is a
you drive,
pickup
right?
truck.
Yes, but the one you're talking about, with the repairs that's due for next year
Next
is the
year,
oldest
correct.
F550.
Yeah.
It's the second oldest one. The oldest one that we have has already been approved to be replaced. The new truck is on order. Chassis actually has been delivered to the upfitter, and that's being built. That's already in process.
Gotcha.
So that we're expecting will be here sometime in early summer.
I think his point was that if we deferred the 1 ton, which we could theoretically do, it puts it in the same year as the F550, which we're pretty clearly going to need to replace.
Right, I'm just
So
trying
I
to do my
think he's
diligence to
looking
make sure you're
forward,
aware.
trying to balance
I
the issues this year with
understand
the issues next year. Well, I just wanna make sure we're all on
It's
the
the same
same
issue
page.
as the police.
But I
cruiser,
think
really.
then, seriously, if we keep the one we've got a brand new one coming, we have one that's fine, we have one that's dying. But we've already invested $12,000 in it, and before we get the new one, we're probably maybe gonna have invested more. And maybe that will give it the life to be bumped into the next year.
We're hoping to get that next 2 years out of what the repairs are.
I'm just saying, if we're talking about doubling up, maybe instead of we're bumping up, just shifting everything down a year, up, over. In other words, if we have to do the pickup next year, then we won't do the 550, we'll do the 550 next year.
So rolling the 550 out 2 years is what you're saying.
It's gonna be kind of by default because of how far out the delivery dates are.
Anyway, I'm just trying to
Will
create
the
a
delivery
financing.
dates start getting better?
Yeah,
I hope so.
they have,
The
What's
dealers
that?
don't seem
What
very
was that, Rob?
enthusiastic about it though, they honestly don't.
Yeah.
And with the trucks, it's an upfitting thing, so they're actually having a lot of customization there, so they've always been close to a year anyway.
So the hydraulic systems for the truck on order
Mhm.
is already, the delivery of the hydraulic systems to the upfitter has already been pushed out a month twice now.
Mhm.
I just spoke to the fellow this morning, actually.
I haven't heard any industry that's seeing better times.
Oats are doing better.
So you're,
Oats.
Oats,
It's better.
okay, well, there
From
you
the front
go.
line.
If only we could run the vehicles on oats, we'd be good, right?
you can.
Only if the horse.
so what I'm getting about the 18 one-ton pickup is that there's been kind of routine maintenance and it's now 5 years, 6 years old. And your bigger concern in the truck itself is staggering purchases.
Yeah.
And it was just at Berkshire GMC,
It was just there a couple weeks ago.
but there's no outstanding problems beyond what they did.
Check engine light came on again last week for a couple days and it went off on its own, so we're just gonna ride
It's a
that
weather
one out.
thing.
That's
Bang, bang,
normal.
bang.
It went into limp mode actually while I was plowing with it, and that lasted for, I was trying to make my way back to the shop, and then, we shut it down for a little bit, and, it kind of recovered, it healed itself.
So what does the mileage on that truck?
Yeah, I had about 50.
No, I mean, like, what miles per gallon do you get?
Oh, 6.5 to 9.
Oh dear.
That's
Oh,
what-
they're all-
Sounds
they're all-
like a
That's
heart
their
attack.
average, that's
Oh,
just
that
common
was-
stuff.
That's typical for all of them, it's a pretty good average, they don't get very good gas mileage at all.
You should
They're
tell
geared
them
kind of
Heavy
low
duty.
for,
And is that, but that's
Yeah.
diesel, right?
correct.
Mhm.
No,
Woo.
he was just telling me the other day about having looked into the possibility of electric vehicles and it just, what they're making now for this purpose, just
Oh, they're wrong.
The
doesn't do the
options
job.
just aren't
Yeah.
No,
really
Just
It's not,
there
it's
for us.
not time yet.
No.
It's coming, but it's not time yet.
We offered twice now to test for them if they would like.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to do it, just to see what, if we can provide some positive input. then
Versus the
so-
police who love the hybrid.
Alright, so I think as far as capital goes, we're going to not look at the fuel management system for this year, it's off the table. The tractor, we have a plan for going forward, and we're all on the same page about the 1-ton pickup,
what page
where
is
it's at.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
It's deferred,
Glad you asked that
deferred.
question.
It's unclear what
So,
page that is.
I think what my understanding from Jim is that the truck right now is functioning, there's been some maintenance that's been more or less routine, and it's kind of due for a replacement, but the bigger reason to purchase it this year is to keep the vehicle staggered.
Right.
Not that it's failing,
Right.
and
That's
the
the
shop.
So
only,
it's not outstanding, we're gonna keep it on the list.
that's the only thing the
What
real
you think?
concern I can see is that what happens to us moving forward
If we
go down.
delay, okay, that's fair.
Just because the fleet's so big,
I'm just gonna put out there, Michelle, that I don't agree with you that
Oh, what
that
did
the
I-
other five, well, the implication was we could push this one and push the F-550 forward. And I'm gonna say that that doesn't sound to me like a viable plan. I suspect we need to keep that other F-550 on the replacement plan, just based on what Jim has told me over the past year and its maintenance record. So we would be probably doubling up next year, which might be okay,
Right.
because we might not have some other costs.
Yes,
But I just wanna put that on the table is how I'm thinking about it.
I'm not invested in that idea.
I know, I just wanted to put that
Threw
out.
it out there. So, to be continued.
Are
sounds
there
like to me.
other questions for Jim about the fiscal year 24 budget? Otherwise,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think.
Yeah.
I got some
Yeah, well,
operational.
Okay, yeah, any questions? Well, Jim's here.
Okay. Jim, let me give you some background, particularly Eileen and I. I've been going through the general ledger trying to understand how expenses are done and where, where the money's going. So, I prepared a list of questions. I wanted to start with the fuel. How did you come up with a budget of $60,000?
Historic trend of what we know, right? The current market prices, we ran short with what we had on last year's current market price.
Mhm.
And we had to go back to the town for, what's the number again, 30, we asked for 31? To get us through this year, through the second half of this year. So basically it was what we had,
Mhm.
plus the 30, and our current use,
Did you use any of the historical data that I provided?
The bottom line, yeah.
I provided, okay, the delivery schedule's 2 years of analysis. The delivery of the diesel fuel every 42 days, or gas is like every 42 days. Gas is this, what we average per day. Police force said they were gonna increase their amount because Brian wanted to be more visual. Brian
Right.
commutes farther than the previous police chief. So I'm kind of surprised that it's that low. If you go onto like websites, GoBuddy.com, you can get projections, what they're projecting, this would be doing the summer month close to $4 a gallon. Stuff like that, diesel fuel, what it would be. And I provided a worksheet that you could plug into different numbers and you could, it would help you calculate the information. I mean, if you look at the invoices, the data that the fuel providers was very consistent about our delivery. And, it didn't vary a lot. I forget the exact numbers, but, I could share it with you there.
I've seen that.
Yeah,
The
so,
spreadsheet was
well,
actually
my
really
point
interesting.
was that we've been practicing, Eileen and I experiences, cost accounting bottoms up. You take your data, you plug it in, you can say, this is what it is. You go in knowing your assumptions in the year, and then if something goes, another war and the price shoots up, you can do a quick reforecast. So things of that nature. I'm not trying to put Jim on the spot, but what we're trying to do, in my opinion, we're starting to spend a lot of money in really understanding cost accounting, and I'm willing to help when people want it. How do we do that cost accounting? And that it is shared. Because, the thing about when you go with fuel, the other thing that, is you can go take some of the money out of snow and ice or whatever, that. And that's fine to do, because it's there, it's a safety valve. But really understanding your fuel usage by police force, that's, it's good cost accounting practices. I ran businesses with margins of 1%, 2%, and 3%. You had to know where every dollar goes. And the other thing is that after you get it set up, it's usually not that hard to maintain. If you have some simple understanding of Excel, you can do it. You gotta do it throughout the year. It's kind of hard to do it when you get it to the budget time.
Right, this is where that fuel management system would be handy for us,
Because the cards would be to departments
But-
and.
Right, but not to complicate the
Yeah, but
issue.
let me finish. The other thing is, the other question I had is for doing the monthly checks, when you get the general ledger, does anybody go back and make sure they're in the right category? Because a lot of my questions that I have, sent around there, why is the uniform cost in the fuel charge category? And they're little dollars, but if you look over the years, for the last 10 years, our budget's going up and going up. And so I think, it's responsible to say, okay, let's spend 20 minutes going over my budget and say, did this general ledger get recorded?
So we do that monthly, and if we see something that got classed wrong, that's why you guys have reclass warrants.
You'll see a reclass.
So
Do you do that
But if
for
you
all
go-
departments
Are
or
we
just them?
basically saying
I
that
do that
you
for the
are
ones that
under
Right, that's what I'm saying,
requesting
not
or
all.
over
Well,
requesting?
I don't know what the assumptions are, I would have to go back, I could go back and do what I call back of the envelope calculations about the spreadsheets I provided and tell you, I don't know what, the question is for like Brian, we talked briefly in his budget meeting, I want to be more visual. He's driving to Sheffield every day, so there's police cars going back and forth further. So, but you do that 5 days a week, it's 10 gallons a day, or whatever, or a week, it adds up. And then if you have any kind of burp in the process, you're looking for it.
So the police fuel is included in.
Yeah, all the fuel,
Okay, and
fire
so-
department fuel.
Right.
Just then have another, so just maybe helping me understand. To date, including the reserve fund transfers that we've made, we've spent $38,000. And,
We've actually spent more than that because some of it's been charged to snow and ice.
Yeah.
okay, I'm just looking at the number that's here, and I don't know what that snow and ice number is, but, and the year is half over, and it looks to me just that you would think that this would be a low estimate of what we might need, even if the prices go down.
So why don't we, I don't wanna I think it's important to get the fuel budget squared away, but why don't we do this? Cause we have a lot more to
Yes.
discuss with Jim, and we have a lot more budget wise to discuss.
Can I just put one
So if
more?
there's further questions about the fuel, maybe we can take that up at a future meeting, cause we have a lot to get to with Jim.
It's not a question, it's just a comment, I'm sorry, I have to say it, Justin, but it's almost like what we're seeing with the library and the electricity now, like looking at these things systemically so we can make decisions, so like the spreadsheet that Frank did, laying it out, so if there's a problem, we can actually identify, if it's not under a department that Melissa manages, where else we might have problems, and making sure everyone's being as efficient, so that's a long-term goal of pulling it in, so I'm gonna put that on a long-term goal.
Is that
But
on your list?
It will, because you see what I'm saying, that's why that spreadsheet will work across all departments, we should do like that for electricity, like, we should be being as efficient as we can.
So what's the plan to square, do you wanna do you have a different number for the fuel?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
This year
I'm
came
just-
out almost the
My
same.
point is the cost accounting, the methodology that you put it together. And I'm not
Okay.
saying it's wrong, I'm just saying this has been my
There
experience.
was, you're really close.
I have other questions because instead of getting into detail, maybe I meet with Melissa and Jim separately. I called you yesterday about that. And we just talk about, this is what I see, and then you could do it, and, we don't have to tie up everybody else.
Well, there were some red flags, that I felt we needed more explanation was in the, supplies number.
We only got the 1 year questions.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, he's the only
That's
one.
the first one.
Right, and this
That's
is,
just my first
one of the second ones,
So that's 5530 you're talking about,
yes.
DPW supplies for 46,000.
Right, so I don't need answers now, but it's just the kind of, entry that we noticed.
Well, what if you have a list of questions?
Right.
We do.
You could just meet with Jim and Melissa, but then it kind of leaves everyone else in the dark. So maybe you.
But it's a lot of it's about methodology too, how he does it.
Right, didn't we meet about this already?
Which is why I brought up the point about changing, like, it's a bigger point than this year, we might be okay, but it's a way moving forward, we wanna make sure we manage this, especially, we don't wanna see those same situations we did last year, 3 months into the budget, with draining.
Supplies, oils, grease, and paint, Michelle.
Mm.
We went up 50%, and again, that's because of the added cost of petroleum products. That line includes all the engine oil, transmission oil, hydraulic oil,
I
all
understand that
supplies
part,
we need
I mean, like,
maintenance part of the shop.
if we
Well,
take this year to date, we spent 16,
Mhm.
and you double that, it's 32. So that's all, that's,
Right, but we're on the verge of ordering now, replenishment stock of
right, and
engine
so
oil, that sort of
that would
stuff.
be included in the 32. I mean, you have 36,000 already appropriated, so it's not likely that that's going to.
So Michelle, that 16 number was for last year.
2022,
Yeah.
not 20,
Right.
You said what we spent.
previous year already in the past, that's not what we've spent to date
We'd have to
this
look.
fiscal year. Oh, that's the
We spent,
previous
we
year.
spent 30, right.
We have
Yeah, but I-
spent 36?
No,
No, you have
sorry, we
30.
don't have that number on
I
this
I
sheet.
But it's a
have,
little higher.
I have
This is what-
here,
Right, this is, This was why I wanted to have the questions ahead of time, so we
Okay,
could
but
be
well,
life
prepared.
doesn't always work the way
It
we
doesn't
want.
work that way,
Right.
you know, I realize I'm getting into the weeds, and it takes time. So in the first, okay, so you have $36,000 budgeted for this year.
Mhm.
According to the first 6 months of the financial, the payable expenditure ledger, you had spent $87.35. And so you're asking.
$8,735.
You're asking for an increase on top of that. I know some of it's seasonal and stuff like that. So what, you know, how do we arrive at that number? That's, you know.
So, yeah, I mean, I think this is all good stuff and all good questions, and I think Jim has the answers. Unfortunately, we just don't have the time right now to go through these piecemeal. So can we, but I think it'd be beneficial for everyone to
See those items?
see the answers. So maybe if Frank or Michelle, if you have questions, can we get them to Jim and then get a response for everybody?
How about if the finance committee, when do you want the numbers back? Because we could.
What numbers back?
I mean, the questions, like, we can make the questions right now because we're actually having a finance committee meeting. We can do it separate from you and just be.
They wanna come up with a list of questions, but we're talking about a
We have a
schedule.
list of questions.
If they have a list of questions, they can get it to Jim. Jim can get us answers and distribute the answers to
Exactly.
everybody. Does that work?
Yeah,
That
that's
works
what
for
I'm
me.
I
suggesting.
mean, there's no reason we can't do it in writing, is there?
Right, and we can
Yes.
put the chapter 90 usage on that list.
Yes, I mean, any questions, right? And the more that we know, the better.
Let's make
Okay.
some questions.
I think, if we wanna adjourn with the finance committee now, that probably makes sense. Unfortunately,
I think Jim had one.
You wanna talk about the wages at all?
I don't have any questions, the wages are going up, I just identified it as an increase in the budget. But the request is pretty straightforward, wages are going up around, does anyone have any questions about the wages specifically?
No.
Or any comments you wanna
I think
make?
it's necessary, right.
I think it's important to be competitive, you know, and invest in people. I know you all have been very supportive here of that. May have a little bit of a change in some numbers that I've been looking at. And only because of some conversations I've had with Sophia and with some other, public works directors around the area. And, they are all in that same range as what we're proposing for our Highway 2. The Highway 3 position is very similar to the Highway 2 with a little bit less responsibility, so I think that their rates need to be a little bit closer together.
So right now it's 25 and 27, if I'm not mistaken.
For
That's
three
what
and
it's
two
sitting in front of
respectively.
us.
Correct.
And what are you suggesting?
And the Highway 4 would be increased more as he acquires his two licenses, his hoisting license and his CDL. We had, a year or so ago, talked about, Melissa and I had assigning a dollar figure, so we kind of had something across the board, what that hoisting license was worth per hour, you know, so that it was a goal for somebody to be able to attain, and the same with the CDL. And we did 50 cents for the hoisting and $1 for the CDL, just kind of an informal thing, it's, you know, so we would have something to gauge, you know. I don't think that's competitive anymore, so I think they're probably closer to $1 or $2. But that puts that position closer to what we would propose anyway, so.
So give us the final proposed numbers.
Just off the top of my head, I thought that, for the foreman, 29 would stay at 29 as the proposal says. 27.50 for the, Highway 2, which is a 50 cents increase, and, 26.50, which is $1 less than the Highway 2 for the Highway 3 guy, because again, those positions are very similar. Just usually the Highway 3 guy has a little less experience and a little less responsibility, and that's where our current situation is. And, 23.50 on the Highway 4.
And would that cover, if he gets the CDL, or would we need to
CDL would-
allow
then-
for
then
an
the CDL
additional?
would be $1, CDL would be $2 and the hoisting would be $1, and that would put him closer to the Highway 3 position, which the responsibilities would be similar.
How do we budget for that if he doesn't have them?
Exactly same. Sorry?
How do we budget for that if he doesn't have them yet? Like, do we have to assume he's gonna get them, or like, how do we do that?
Put it in the personnel line and then.
I don't see the CDL thing happening because it takes so long to get through the program
Okay.
and finish it out. The hoisting, I'm really, really hopeful he'll do that. He actually has already applied for the test date,
Okay.
so he's just waiting on a test date back from the state.
So do we need, so that one, we should probably include that
one-
raise in
That
our
one
budget
hoisting, I
line?
believe the hoisting should be in that one.
Okay, which would bring it to 2450.
So, and if you got a CDL, he'd actually make the same as Highway 3,
Correct,
in theory.
correct, because by that time, he will have the same amount of experience as the Highway 3 guy currently has now.
Alright, that makes sense to me,
Mhm.
at least.
No open items there.
If there's, so what's gonna happen is, any questions for Jim are gonna be sent to Jim, and then the responses can come back to everybody. And we have a couple more items to discuss with Jim that are really just select board items, so I don't know if the finance committee wants to adjourn. Unfortunately, we didn't get to Southern Berkshire request for funding with the joint meeting, or the assessor's reval, or the Greene Park ballfield renovation.
We wanna,
We do have some items that we need to discuss with Jim though, right, the Beartown engineering
I think
and other items.
the finance committee will, I make a motion that we move to the other side of the room, review our list of questions. And, okay, review our list of questions and authorize Frank to submit them to Jim. Do I have a second?
A second.
yeah, of course, I just have one thing about Southern Berkshire, we have to, SPV, we have to act on, I think we should spend.
We don't have to act on it
Oh,
right
yeah?
now. I mean,
This-
one town said they weren't gonna get to it till mid-February, right? I mean, the sooner the better.
I just have one suggestion, if I may. After reading, I wrote back Chris, I meant Chief, thank you, Melissa, because I was like, I thought it was Sean, then I saw Steve. But I think, whoever has the best relationship with SBVA should just give them a call and tell them we're working on something and not happy, so we don't like wait and then surprise them with the letter. Let's keep it a working relationship based on Chief's letter.
Got one more on there, so I came up with a new proposal, but I think that, looking forward, this is so important. And keeping the communication lines and getting the towns to cooperate in a positive way
Yes.
to maintain long-term viable essential services is really important. And I kind of feel like we don't need to just talk to the 2 towns that are unhappy or the 3 towns that are unhappy. We need to be talking to the whole group to come up with a way to make sure this
I
group
agree.
stays solid and viable and that there's equitable funding for the whole thing. And if that means we need to send somebody from each town to a table to talk about how we're looking at this, I think that's crucial. We don't wanna wait till it folds to do that, right? Like, that's where I'm headed.
Are you
in my
volunteering?
thinking. I'm happy to do it, I'm happy to let somebody else do it, but that's what I think we
And
should do.
sooner rather than later.
Yes,
I
And
agree.
it should be a
That'd be-
positive conversation, because we all want them to succeed, for heaven's
Correct.
sakes.
I just wanna say I have a motion on the floor that needs to be voted on.
Right, but I would be happy.
Well, I'm
to-
not thinking the select, I think the select board should still discuss it, it's just.
Yeah, no,
no,
I totally get that, I get it.
Yeah,
I just
and
wanted
we
their
just wanna
input.
make
We're
sure.
on
leaving your
even that.
meeting and we're happy to talk
Yeah, we
about it.
accept the
Okay.
motion, Michelle.
I know you want
We're leaving on the jet plane.
Hey, Don.
Or jet trail, no
to.
thanks.
So we're gonna go in the other room.
Hoverboard. No, I think you're keeping us on track. Thank you.
So the first thing is, and we brought it up last week, but we had a few questions on the foresight, proposal for the Beartown Mountain Rd Mass Works Grant project. So, page 3, you have it on you. I think the main concern was the additional services and expenses not included in the basic scope of services.
Which is a very long list.
It's a pretty long.
And just we're all here aware how close that road runs to the river for a long duration of time. And at least my thought was Foresight, we just wanna make sure Foresight knows that, and that's generally included in the first
Yeah.
figure.
Yes, and, so the principal that we're working with, Earl Moffett, he's, been on that, job site probably 3 or maybe 4 times now. We just drove it 2 weeks ago. These are, this is Foresight covering themselves in case we run across something, is really what it boils down to. These are items that they've run across in other jobs, I'm sure, that, force them to put that out there so we're all aware of it. We don't anticipate that there's going to be any of these issues that come up. As we're moving forward, we're gonna have them do some preliminary flagging and a little bit more survey work, so that we're sure that there's no, wetlands and Army Corps type stuff that we might need to get into. I just had a brief conversation with Kevin Hallway the other day about that, so she kind of gave me the bullets to look out for. On what might be up for conservation type stuff on that. We have a blanket notice of intent with them, for repairing and replacing culverts and that sort of stuff, some of that may fall under that coverage. Does that make any sense?
And this is all coming out of your budget, out of
Operations.
The
operations.
Foresight contract, not the whole project, right? Just being clear.
And that's listed in the grant application as part of the match.
Yep.
Okay. Do you have any other questions?
No.
No, I think, they're never gonna give us a stronger thing than that, because they're
Right, I think-
always gonna
I
have
think
these
that if you
exceptions.
spelled
It's just-
out each one of these items and they proposed on that, you'd be $100,000 in the increase,
And you don't know
I get
which of
it.
them that might
I
happen.
get that, we know that legal fees, compounds and all that sort of stuff, and engineering fees can be a similar can of worms.
What is the cost of it?
30,000.
The estimated cost, right?
Yeah, estimated value.
$30,650.
Are there any other
And that's,
questions on
and
this?
that's basically done with your $1 million project. So just for informational purposes, it's not a concrete timeline or anything like that. We hope to have some engineering done and be out to bid for this construction season that would start towards the later half of the construction season and to be completed before winter time. So that would attract contractors probably from, other parts of the region that normally would perform these larger municipal projects.
You think in August and beyond? Wrapped up by Halloween. Ish.
Thanksgiving. That makes
Anything
sense.
I have no other questions.
That's what we're hopeful for.
Should we sign that sucker?
Yeah, do you wanna move it?
I move that we approve the Foresight Land Services contract proposed scope of services for engineering services.
Second. Vote,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
Unanimous, yes. Alright, thanks for getting this together, Jim.
Sure.
So I will sign that, I think there's just one more.
You got anything else for us?
So we have
What else we got? Curtis Road?
Lovers Lane, Gould Road, Fox Hill, and Old Water Distribution System on Sylvan.
So let's touch on that real quick. You initially had mentioned something to me about that property was to fall back into the town's hands, which it has, right?
Which property?
So there was a water distribution system for the houses on Sylvan Road and Point Road and that area. It used to supply water, for the seasonal homes there. When the last home came off of that, I don't know where this information might be reachable, I'm sure it's there somewhere, but that land would revert to town ownership or become town owned. So that occurred quite some time ago, and that system has been abandoned for quite some time. So it was brought to my attention, I took a quick look at it. just to make sure there weren't any safety concerns or anything of that nature, you know, so. I had National Grid remove the service and pull the meter. There was no outstanding balance or anything of that nature, because there was a actual pump house there.
Is this off of Peppermint Brook or Scott Lane?
Scott
Road.
Exactly,
Okay, I
yeah,
know where we are.
exactly, yeah. So there was a cistern.
Yep.
The roof has collapsed in on the cistern, so we got a little bit of snow fence, we went over and put that up around there so nobody would fall in there. Because it's at least 8 feet deep and it's full of water and it's exposed to the elements. So in the meantime, we're trying to figure out kind of a little bit of a history on that, what might be underground there, what we might need to clean up. And the least invasive thing, might be to use that for fire protection, for a system for fire protection, put a new roof on it. And improve the access to it. And, you know, then you got 40,000 gallons of water for fire protection there for an initial hit. And buy a little bit of time to get something more permanent established, you know, so it's something Sean and I were talking about. And it's just something to think about as we move forward, you know, as an option for it. Another option would be possibly to remove what's left of the roof structure. It was a metal roof. Some of the trusses are still there, pieces, you know. And just simply fill the cistern with crushed stone and leave it there. Another option, and another component of that, I'm sorry, is to remove the pump house. That's about an 8x8, sort of tucked back into an embankment. It appears there's a pressure tank that's buried underground. I think that thing was more of an air pump than a water pump, and it forced air into the system is what it kind of looks like to me. And similar to push the water, similar to a residential system would be off of well water, you know, which is a bigger version of that. So anyways, we're moving forward with that and just kind of, you know, right now it's secure. And,
So this was the water supply source for approximately how many homes on Point in Sylvan?
I don't.
My understanding, which is through hearsay, is that Hebert put it in when they divided up the point. I only knew it as the point water system.
Was it ever considered a public well and had to be monitored? As places generally are that supply more than some.
It might have been less than 12 homes or whatever the limit is, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
I don't know very much about it.
I think it was really for the point in particular.
But there's no actual well in the ground.
Correct.
This is just
That just takes
under just pressure, hydrostatic pressure is blocked out.
whatever. I'm not sure how the water gets into the cistern. Again, that's why I was kind of digging around to see if there was any other infrastructure buried there.
Yeah.
But my guess is it comes from that brook, which I believe you're right. I think that is Peppermint Brook. According to a couple of locals out there, the old timers, they remember that brook being in much nicer condition than it is now, as far as, you know, now it's silted in and organic matter.
It's a marsh.
Yeah, it used to be a nice brook, I guess.
Yeah, well, you could actually take the boat.
That's what I heard. They used
all
to
the
ski
way
up it, yeah.
Behind Mary Ellen.
Right.
Almost up to the Hupai Road.
Right.
Where that house is, that first architectural house that has the.
Little platform.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that, but that's a long time.
So it's, apparently hasn't been used in quite some time either. I'm thinking it's at least 30 years. You know, one of the guys I spoke to over, he thought it was probably more than that.
Anybody ask Art Hebert? Yeah, Bob Hebert? What he knows about it?
I have not. I talked to Tom Mency and to Jerry a little bit about it, so. And Tom thought he'd ask around if any other people he knows around there. And that's about what we have on this so far. Kind of neat history, but, you know, just something we have to deal with as we go forward.
We might be looking into selling some of the town properties, so if it becomes used for fire suppression, we would obviously hang on to it, but.
Right.
Is that on the list that you?
Yes,
Yeah, it is, okay.
that's how I found it.
Found it, right.
Okay.
It's,
I just didn't
a few
remember it.
acres.
I thought, I
was gonna be a
remember a
question
bunch of the
after
others, but not that.
When did you come across that, you know?
1.37 acres.
So it's probably a pretty non-conforming lot for building.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it's probably grandfathered.
Yeah, but it doesn't have a structure on it, so, yeah, I guess it would still be grandfather in it, yeah.
anyway, so keep us updated on that as things go along.
And, so Curtis Road Bridge replacement is on the list for, that's a tips project, I get these projects on.
Just do Curtis Road Bridge.
No, we
did
just
some, they did some repairs to it to buy some time, and now there's some state funding available to replace that bridge entirely.
Owned by J.J. O'Connell's. Didn't we just do that like 8 years ago?
We did a temporary fix to get us to this point.
Right,
We're going
that
to
was-
replace the
That
entire.
was a terrible fix.
5 years
I don't know
ago.
who engineered that, but gee,
Right.
it was.
So, that's slated for replacement,
And that's tips.
that's tips. And that's for fiscal 2024.
And what's our responsibility on that
There.
financially?
Detour.
And who's doing that work?
Detour. It hasn't gone out to bid yet, this is the state is.
Yeah.
They're overseeing it, they're engineering it, they're running the project.
It's me.
Well,
Cluster.
so we have a couple of options over there. We could either do the light in the one lane at a time, which drags the project down even further, or we can use Gould Road, River Road to Gould Road, Lover's Lane area as a detour.
Yeah.
And then just let them tear that bridge right out and go replace it, right? Obviously, that's the quickest and most efficient way to do things, so. However, what that does for us is that sort of forces us into considering, what do we do about Gould Road and making that passable for 2-lane traffic by Lover's Lane, truck traffic in and out of the gravel bed, truck traffic in and out of the highway garage, and truck traffic in and out of Gould Farm. I think it's a good opportunity to improve that road and kind of accomplish a couple other goals. We have a few other small sections of road, Fox Hill, for instance. We've gone through 2 construction seasons with that project being approved for, correct by the firehouse, that little,
What do we wanna do there?
10th allowed repave it. Be a full depth reclamation, repave it. It's been, something that's been approved, Chapter 90 funds have been approved for it for, like I said, 2 seasons now. It's been really hard to get the contractor to come out, so I think part of that is because it's such a small project to mobilize for. So this maybe would, I'm hoping would, attract somebody to get out there a little bit sooner to do that, to do a short section of River Road between Gould and Hudson's driveway. There's a seam, and that road's coming apart from there to Main Road, it's, another 1/10 of a mile. Gould Road is 8/10 of a mile. So now we just,
Paving that, are you?
that was part of what I wanted to throw out here for you all to
And expanding it.
consider. There's a little section of road as you get to the crest of the hill at the beginning of the gravel, where the bank comes in from the south side of the road. Where if you shaved off the edge of that bank, leave a row of trees between the field and the work area, the road, and push that bank back, essentially, you take that curve out of it, and you're able to widen that out for 2 lanes down through there. And actually pave it to accommodate the truck traffic.
Cause the alternative is that we have a one-way road. And, cause I would not want to be going one way on that with a truck coming out. That's
So
for sure.
what we did back
Well,
when the 23
we had a
culvert
light
was
on that
redone,
road once already.
when the
Both
23
ends.
culvert was done.
Right.
And we had all of the traffic of 23 for a couple weeks.
It was, from what I understand, when they replaced the culvert
On Curtis.
On
on
23,
23, just east of River Road. It's almost right at the
Yeah,
River Road
right,
intersection.
right.
That culvert was replaced in 2015.
I was gonna say, I would
So-
say, I'm pretty sure it was more recently than that,
2015.
yeah.
so when Sean came to us initially and asked us if we wanted to do the light on the Curtis Road Bridge or shut it down, it was, I think the state said it was 1 season versus 3 seasons was the estimate. And I think the board at the time said, we'd much rather shut Curtis Road down
Right.
and do 1 season. But the plan at the time was to put, if I recall correctly, was to just do that light on Lover's Lane as had been done in 2015, especially because we had all of 23 going over that road
Yeah.
with that light. And it was not ideal, but it kind of,
But it worked.
it worked. And so this would be much longer, it'd be for a whole season,
I
but it
also
would only be the Curtis Road traffic that's being diverted. And do they make those lights now where it kind of senses if a car is coming, like back in
That's
here?
what they're-
What, my question though is, I seem to recall the price of that thing being insane per week. Am I wrong about that?
It's pretty expensive. I don't wanna give you the wrong number.
Right. I mean,
For
I,
a traffic light?
yes,
I think it's
I
a couple
remember
thousand.
a week.
A week, yeah.
So
Oh,
we're
sure it is.
responsible for the detour regardless of how the project is done.
Correct.
And, you know, mind you, a couple thousand a week, even for a whole season, may still be less than the repaving of the road, but at the end, you're left with nothing, you don't have it,
But you keep your
but you keep your
road,
dirt road,
you keep
right,
your
so there's a.
Lover's Lane.
And like, I could even see the value of doing the one lane at a time, but 3 seasons is kind of like. Of course, they got Tyrion done,
Yeah,
they
did
got that bridge done way faster than I thought they were gonna
Construction
get it done, am I the only one who felt that way?
Yeah,
I'll say, I felt that was long.
It was like 1 season.
Yeah, it was.
It was fine. I drove on that.
They actually, if I recall, they were about 3 months ahead of the schedule on that. Which is probably almost unheard of, but with the amount of things you can run into next to the brook.
This is true.
My first sense would just be to do the one lane, do the light and the one lane as had been done and leave the road more or less the same.
And use Lover's Lane.
Yeah, and use Lover's Lane.
It's really kind of the only way around that, you know? Other than maybe someone could come along the road or along the road.
I hate to ask this, but what would be, can Lover's Lane as is handle the truck traffic that would be there for that period? Like, we did it for the short period with the culvert replacement, that wasn't terribly long, it was a couple of weeks, right?
And it wasn't all the truck traffic, because the gravel bed traffic could still use Curtis Road at that point.
Right.
And same with highway garage traffic, could
Right.
still use Curtis Road at that point, unless they were going in that direction.
So my question would be, what would we have to do to, let's say we went with the light, and I'm not opposed to it, I'm just feeling out the different options, because I like that cute little road too. What would we have to do to the road bed to make sure it could manage the truck traffic even one way for that duration? Like, that's the question.
We have actually been planning, knowing that this is coming, so we've been pouring a fair amount of gravel into that road. Last year, we put about 10 inches of 1.5 process and a couple inches of 3/4 on top of that. And started building that road up in preparation for this, and that will only help us in any case that we proceed. So this is just, very early on in conversations, and these are, the paving part of it is chapter 90 eligible.
Mhm.
So it's, of a, relatively low impact to our capital. Other than that, it does spend, 300 of our bank.
Is throwing gravel on it, chapter 90 eligible or not?
No, that's been coming under our operations, by our gravel.
And the light would not be checked out.
And the light would not.
So he would actually have to amend his budget if they determine to choose the light option.
When is the project likely to complete?
It's so hard
So
to,
it might
all you get is a list of
Well, I think we're
projects that are on that list, and all it says is 2024.
Oh, so it is the
Yeah,
2024
we're
fiscal
scheduled
year.
for 2024.
So this is kind of imminent.
There's probably 9 projects countywide on there.
Can we get some numbers on what that light would cost and what the change of
Yeah,
the
sure.
road would cost?
Sure.
Like, so we can compare both costs and, like, we kind of have a sense of what it would mean in terms of usage, in terms of what it would be like to survive that period. But having some numbers on like, okay, it's gonna cost this much to run a light and keep it one way, and we'd have this much in making sure that the road could handle the one-way heavy traffic versus if we widen the road, what's that gonna cost? Just seeing some numbers would be really helpful.
So, and just to go back to what you said at the beginning, but I didn't, I forgot at this point. To make it a 2-lane road, what would generally the process be? To make Lover's Lane a 2-way road?
It'd be removing a number of trees, 12 plus.
The whole, cause there's a row of trees on either side, right?
On the south side of the road, there are a couple of mature pines on the north side of the road that this might be a good time to get rid of them. If we were to go and invest money in paving and all that, obviously you don't want to cut trees on your pavement, so, or having them fall, that's my only thought on that, okay? Widen that bank out, set the subgrade to where we need to have it, get the drainage in place, 2.5 inches of binder and 1.5 inches of top on there. And that would continue down to the foot of the hill from the transfer station. And then as part of that, as part of making that project more attractive to contractors, just where my mind is going, do a resurfacing of the existing pavement all the way to the end of the current pavement at Gould Road, because up in that area of 93 Gould Road, the blue house that's over the bank with multiple units in it, that road's really coming apart on that corner. We did some excavation work there last summer. When you're working in an area like that, you really see what's coming apart.
Where are you talking about?
Up at the top of the hill at Gould Farm.
Like main house.
Morning house.
I'm sorry, I don't know the name.
The white-
At the top, at the
90.
very top of the hill.
So from that White House at the very top, where they have kind of wide parking area,
Backwards, down there.
up towards the farm and into that first corner, there's a blue house, ranch style house that sits over the bank. That's where the road's in the worst shape, is on that corner. And that does need some attention, so I'm just trying to figure what makes this more attractive to do this whole project in one shot. If that makes sense to anybody else.
Maybe you know what would be helpful actually is just a map, just with the yellow lines like you did for the community center.
Sure.
But you're not talking all of Gould Road, you're talking just a section up by the center of Gould Farm.
I'm talking the current paved Gould Road plus Lover's Lane,
Gotcha.
So
Alright.
from River Road up to the paved portion of Gould
up to the gravel section.
Road. Right,
Right, where you turn to go into the new activity center,
The new community center,
to just beyond that.
that's when it turns dirt.
Main house.
and,
Main house, yeah, to just beyond the main house.
right,
So I just wanna get you all
Oh, this is
thinking that in that
right,
direction,
okay.
what our options
So it's
are,
fine.
and
okay.
make sure we're
And
informed before. we
That would be 90, chapter 90 eligible? Okay.
And your hope was that that would also if they had one shot, that might also get the, what was it, Fox
That could.
Hill project completed,
Pay
because
off Fox Hill, and we
they
could
might
replace,
be
we could
actually
repair
Why
that.
do we care about Fox Hill? I'm just curious, what's the problem?
It's in bad shape.
But who travels it? I mean, what's traveling?
How many houses
It's a
down
dead
there?
end, isn't it?
Five houses down in there now, there's
All
four,
private?
and they're building another one.
All private?
That section of, where they are, it's private road, but it's town road from the pavilion out to Main Road.
So from the pavilion forward, you're saying that's what we would pay for?
It's less than, I think it's right around a tenth of a mile.
but nobody wants to come do it because
It's so hard, it's
Yeah,
not,
it's small.
it's expensive to mobilize the equipment for that little bit of a job.
Yeah.
So, I'm trying to get these other projects scheduled, that are gonna be scheduled at some point anyway.
Well, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
numbers would be
Get your
great,
number
sorry
on
to
the
make you constantly do numbers, but
That's what we do, right?
I know.
Numbers and maybe a map too,
And a map too.
which I think now I pretty much understand where you're at, but just for clarification.
And then when we get asked questions, we can say, here, we have this nice little map.
That would show the trees that are gonna be taken out, the width, road, how that will change.
Cause everybody's gonna be asking, so.
And it's worth taking a drive over there,
Yeah.
Questions, look me up, I'll be happy to go over with you and we can look at it together.
Thank you.
And
Alright.
thanks for investing so much effort in advanced planning, it's very much appreciated. Even if we question you about everything.
That's what you're supposed to do.
I know. Still painful.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
You all.
Yeah.
Sophia, sorry, we're running a couple minutes late.
I'm here.
We're doing pretty good that we're only 5 minutes.
We have just our regular monthly update, but also some town clerk business and some town administrator evaluation, business.
Yes.
That we didn't actually put on our meeting with you, but it's on our agenda for discussion, and while you're here, you might as well comment on it, or we can at least discuss it.
Okay.
Are there any general updates you wanna discuss or bring up before going into the other two items I mentioned?
I sent you all a compensation survey I've been doing, the work in progress, so take it lightly, but if there's something specific that you're looking for that's not on there, definitely point it out to me and I'll do my best to try to find it. I think it's a pretty good amount of data though so far. Other than that, I've been doing like a lot of different research questions. A lot of you have brought some just general questions about things to me, which I am looking into. One of the big ones though I am looking into is drug screening for people who use vehicles in town, so.
And the highway is already screened.
Right, and I just wanna make sure we're doing that the correct way.
So we have some amount of drug screening, you're thinking maybe we need to be drug screening more people than we do?
Yeah, I think I just need to understand better what's going on, because there's different levels of it. There's like the preliminary drug screening, then there's the DOT consortium, and I just wanna make sure we are doing it the correct way.
Okay.
It's not a big concern, it's just I'm making sure.
Double check.
Yeah. Gathering materials for the meeting coming up, for our bi-monthly roundtable department meeting, which I'm hoping is gonna be a good platform for some training material, but I am gonna keep it light for our first few times doing this, just don't wanna overwhelm everybody that's there, so.
You want this open?
I think everybody else, you all know
They want
what's
it.
going on behind the scenes, so I won't bring it up here, all the other things.
Okay.
By the way, I just wanted to throw out there, since we have been on topic with, performance reviews, we have to review Ward.
And Sophia,
Yeah.
and I'm aware.
Well, oh, and Sophia.
Well, so do I do Sophia, because technically, because you haven't made the amendments to my contract, she reports to me.
Is that in your contract?
It's in her job description, and I believe there was
So-
something in my contract that related to this.
I don't think so. I think you're right that it's in Sophia's intermunicipal agreement, and I talked to Mark Bruinski back when the board asked me to in the summer. And Mark said to hold off on making any changes, at the moment and see how things went.
And actually, your review is done by Mark and Barrington, because she's technically an employee of Barrington.
Mhm.
So her review's already been done.
Yes, he does go lightly for the first round though, because he obviously didn't know me very
Well,
well.
and you just started in July,
That's what I mean, so
yeah.
for everybody in Great Barrington, we just like go over the form for the first time, set some goals, and then reconvene the next year for more like structured type of thing.
Understood, gotcha. Yes, I've been aware, and I've just been, between the other items, not gotten to it.
There was not a complaint, I
No.
just wanted to make sure it was on our agenda,
No,
you
yeah,
know?
absolutely.
In regards to.
Town administrator,
Yes, in
Uh,
regards to that, I just need some clarity, am I sending just to the chairs or to the whole committees, because I just read your email.
definitely just the chairs, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry if I miscommunicated. So a couple things. We had approved the 360 form, which I sent to you. We had talked about having 2 weeks, and I wasn't sure if there was an off chance you were gonna get the chance to send it out at the end of last week. But if you haven't sent it out yet, sure, 2 weeks be
Should it be this, I think we said the 7th, which is next Tuesday, but
which is 6
that's
days.
really quick turnaround if it's only getting mailed out tomorrow or whatever.
So
Do we make it
Tuesday the
following
14th?
week?
Tuesday the
Whatever
14th.
you both
No, what do you
agree.
think is practicable?
I think next week is a plenty of time. I don't think we should be giving an extended period. It's not gonna take people very long.
And
Well, it's plenty of time, but we approved the form last week and it didn't get, and it's not sent out yet, so.
Well, that's
we
what
ju-
I mean, so if there's some kind of, if you're bound by that ruling, then
No,
do what
we
you
can change
need
that.
to.
What we're asking is, if we're giving you the go-ahead today, what's your timing, like, how should we be telling people they need to return it by next Tuesday? Or like, could you get it out and they could get it and respond by that? That might not work. Do we need to extend that to the following Tuesday of the 14th, so that gives you time to get them out and they have a clear deadline?
Everybody's getting it via email, so
Okay,
it'll be instantaneous today,
okay,
and it's not gonna go out later than today.
so you think that next Tuesday works?
I think so,
Okay.
but that's my own opinion, and I don't wanna go against
No,
anybody else.
we wanna make sure you think it will work, that's all. That's what I wanted to make sure. I can't speak for everybody.
I don't want people sitting and honestly like trying to like think of things. if
Do it
there's
or
not-
don't do it.
That's
Yeah.
what I mean, I think that people that really have that feedback, it's not gonna take them very long to just say what they love, like what they think that you work on and things like that.
I emailed town council, but she's caught up preparing for this
Yeah,
Massachusetts Supreme Court argument, so she actually passed on my inquiry to Alex, who we've worked with once before when Donna was on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have a comment, the question being, you're gonna receive the 360 feedback forms, you're gonna receive the select board feedback forms,
Mm-hmm.
and then compile it into a comprehensive review, right? We're tasked you with doing that.
Right.
The question that I asked Donna is, I'm gonna pull it right up, so that there's no
Miscommunication.
questions. Monterey's in the process of completing its first annual town administrative performance evaluation. The board would appreciate your input about how to proceed. We have agreed that each board member will submit a completed performance evaluation form to the HR director, who will also receive 360 review forms from direct reports to the town administrator and other appointed and elected officials. At that point, we are tasking the HR director with compiling all of the submitted forms into a comprehensive summary evaluation. Could members of the select board at that point review and make comments on the comprehensive summary evaluation, or would that violate the open meeting law? Would this comprehensive summary evaluation be a confidential document, and would members of the select board receiving and reviewing it affect its confidentiality? So, as of right now, we're on the same page, that all the forms are coming back to you and you're compiling them, we just don't know.
You're saying based on like the overlap that you'll all be kind of seeing each other's feedback, is that your concern?
Well, that's just a question for town council, is what, because we discussed, my idea was just to give it all to you and then you do what you want with it. And then if there's some reason you need to come back to the board, you would, but otherwise we would be done with our part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
There was another suggestion that we give it to you and then you give us a draft back and then we each individually make comments and give them back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we're trying to figure out what legally our options are, and then we're gonna have to make a decision, but it should keep your hands full to have all the forms back and make
Right,
it
yeah.
and
So
compile
by
them.
the time I have everything.
We should know next Wednesday what we're legally allowed to do and what we want to do.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Do you need anything else on that?
I don't believe so. I
Okay.
have, you gave me all the emails, and are those just the chairs or is it the full committee?
That's just the chairs.
Okay, perfect, then I have everything I need then.
This was just the list that you had made up.
Yep.
Okay. Clerk.
Yep.
So,
Description or add
So
first?
she hasn't been included in this.
So we made them in footnotes.
Okay.
so basically, I mean, the clerk mostly just follows Mass General Law and their duties. But the way that it was drafted up by the interim town clerk, I just felt was very like bare bones and
Just so you know, that was the existing approved
Oh, it was just existing
It's
for,
the existing, and all we did was add those two things.
What, those two things?
Right, so the one that
Okay.
says Melissa and Marie's was the existing job description, and we added those two things.
So
Justin's is
what are those
complete
two things you're referring to?
The annual town census and voter registration
They're
was
kind of-
added
you
as
can-
duties,
You can sort of tell that there's slightly different color and they're underlined.
and other duties as assigned by the town manager.
so I,
Confidentiality on the next page, yeah.
I was curious, I've approved the clerk one before and clearly forgotten that I did so. I was curious, and I just went to Great Barrington's clerk description from the most recent one I could find, and it's much more explicit about the expectations, and I prefer that. And so I mostly took Great Barrington's and modified it in some ways to meet how Monterey is different.
Why would we be different?
Yeah, I was just gonna say
So,
that.
They
one-
might do more duties than we do.
So one,
Because they have a hospital town too, I know that.
well, I can go over it
takes
since I made the
something.
changes,
Yeah.
what the
Well, one
difference
thing
is.
Can I
about
say-
making something more explicit is that it also ties you down to the explicit additions, but it also ties you into not being able to, the more you put in here.
Yeah.
The less you can kind of,
Let's wait,
Well, I
what
have-
do you have?
the less, yeah.
Yeah, let me respond to that. So, the first question you asked was what changes were made. So, for instance, Great Barrington says that certain lists need to be updated daily. And I said, we're never gonna have a town clerk that works daily, so I said, I changed it to regularly. To speak to, we're tied down to the list of duties, there's a disclaimer in our current job description, and I included it in the revised one at the beginning, that says the omission of specific statements of duties did not exclude them from the responsibility of the employee in the position if the work is similar, related, or a logical assignment to the position.
So wouldn't that just end the subject, that everything else is just gonna be assumed?
And
That if it's something that we need,
well, that's already in the existing.
That's what I'm
yeah.
saying.
It's already in the existing one, I kept it, so I don't think there's any worries about if you list them all out, you can't ask for more things. But lastly, I think the clerk's job is not really guided by what the select board wants. Like Jim comes in and asks us, do you want this dirt road or do you want to pave it? But the clerk's job is follow Mass General Law, and they ask, the state people if they have questions. I think that their duties, there's not much room for wiggle room. They have to hold elections and follow the laws about elections, and that's not really up to the select board or anybody to decide how to do that. And I just think that it's a more clear list and maybe more, I think also the current job description is a little bit of a neutered version of a town clerk's position.
Do we have, Marie look
I was
over?
saying, well, so we just got this from Justin today, so
Yeah.
I would like Marie and I to go over your job description. to
Also,
give our comments.
Where did you get GVs from? Because they haven't been updated at all.
I know. I got it from when they hired the last time, or maybe not the last time, but when they hired in 2019.
Okay,
I will say this, there was one period where the assistant clerk was sending me a lot of posted, job descriptions for ads for assistant town clerks. And this is a lot closer to what I was seeing, and I probably accumulated like 10 of them for different towns in the state of Massachusetts. And they were all closer to this than to that.
I've just been working with the GV clerk
It
as
doesn't mean
well,
it's
so
ideal.
I might have an
I mean,
updated version for
Initially,
everybody
it's like
as
the records
well.
access officer, I would want that removed or served as an alternate records access
Mhm,
officer,
okay.
because
Yep.
right now I'm the records access officer.
Do you wanna
so I
say
can't-
that, or do we want to have?
Well, that's just my
anybody-
initial thing, and I
Right.
think, I think Justin's covers everything that we have here, but we were being less specific, so like Scott said, we wouldn't be tied into something and we had a little more flexibility.
And I
But
can
if
see
if
pros
Marie
and
and I
cons.
can look at this
Right,
and
yeah.
just
I
make our
think you
comments.
should all consider whether you want somebody to be certified or not as well, when we're looking for candidates.
It's preferred, but can we get a certified town clerk at the wage we're offering?
And the hours, I think it's gonna
Excellent
be
question.
difficult.
I think it's preferred. I don't
Or
see the
cons-
town clerk as like a flexible position.
How do you?
And what?
In just the way that I described, they're following Mass General Law, not what the select board wants them to do.
Right.
And I think it just helps, you know, if we're not getting, if the voter list isn't being updated, or you know, if something wasn't sent to the Attorney General's office after town meeting, it's right in here, that's part of your job description. The expectations are clear. I mean, it's always clear that town clerk needs to follow Mass General Law, but it's even more clear if it's in the job description. I just like the way that Great Barrington had it written up, and I of course want Marie to comment on it. I got that Monday and I looked at it yesterday, and
I have to agree that I feel like the precision of the actual responsibilities in there will make the evaluatory process more straightforward. Like, was this done? Was this done? Was this done? Like, it's, in a way, it's more straightforward because the job is complex and, has a lot of boxes to check of things that have to be done for the state. But it's really hard to figure out what that list is if you don't have a list.
well, that's the problem.
Exactly, I'm agreeing with you.
It is Mass General Law, right, the first thing, I pulled this from Great Barrington. Responsible for all duties pertaining to the function of the town clerk in accordance with the provisions of more than 73 chapters and 451 sections of Mass General Law. But we don't know what those are immediately as a layperson.
And
And if we
often
list out the
it's
most
usually-
important ones, then they're here, we know what the town clerk is responsible for, and they know. And if they're not certified and they don't have a lot of experience, they can look to this and know what the duties are. But it's just two different ways of going about it, and I'd be curious to hear what Marie thinks.
Yeah.
And then also consider the alternative that if we're not getting somebody certified, to maybe budget for them to be certified.
Mass General Law actually says if they get certified, we have to pay them $1,000.
But it's a good incentive.
I think so,
And you know
for what
then you know that
It's
they,
Mass General Law.
Just $1,000,
because it's a lot of training that they have to do, but.
one time fee.
I
It's
know,
bumped
right?
into their salary, yeah.
But the $1,000, I think what he's saying is that like, that's not much of an incentive for most people.
But yes, we have it budgeted for up to, depending on experience.
I will say, without knowing the town clerk job market, I don't know if the rate and the hours are going to attract good candidates.
Yeah.
And so I wanna get the ball rolling, so that if we find people who need more money or more hours or whatever the case may be, but they're good certified town clerks, that we can hire them and budget for them.
So do you think we need to, are you suggesting we raise the cap
In next year's budget.
in the 24 budget?
Well, I would hope that we could hopefully do this hiring process in the next 6 weeks or something, and be able to put that figure right in. Right now, we have some
Okay.
flexibility with pay, but then we could put that figure in next year's budget. It'd be ideal that we have someone sitting in the town clerk's office doing the job with a schedule and a pay rate, and then we can budget. for next year.
Absolutely, I guess what I'm saying is, if our ideal candidate would be certified, and we wanna make sure we can do that, is the max salary that we've allocated as a potential for this job gonna cover a certified person, or are they just gonna walk away right off the bat?
Well, we're paying 30 for a certified now, so maybe we should say pays up to 30.
I should check out my
I was gonna say, what did
compensation
you
data as
say?
That
well.
would be great.
I got all of my town clerk and assistant town clerk rates, directly from the association, working with one of the other town clerks, so.
Okay.
And it's probably more than we need because it is gonna be some of the bigger cities, so just keep an eye on that, but
Right.
otherwise, there's a good pool to pull from.
Okay.
So we can look at the data she sent us.
Yeah.
And you can have Marie look at that, and you can have a look at that, cause who knows I don't know what current thing there is, or if anybody else has hired one that's in the town you look at, but does that sound like a plan?
Yes, so
Okay.
Marie's gonna look at the both, and we're gonna look at the salary compensation survey and decide whether we want a more expanded job description or a more summarized job description, and what rate we wanna hire up to.
And I will say, to be honest, in part, I would be in favor of the more what do you wanna say, extensive, precise, list of job duties, just so we can make sure that all of those duties are being met in a reasonable way, whoever we hire.
Yeah.
Because there were questions previously about whether that was happening, because we weren't even sure exactly what the list of vital duties was, other than the vital statistics, which is really only a part. So I like having them listed out, so we can actually make sure that the person we hire is aware of what's involved in the job, understands the scope of the job, and that when the person is being evaluated on the basis of whether they did the job, it's a lot easier to do that, because we know what it is they're supposed to be doing.
And I don't think that's a question, I think I would just wanna look at it with Marie to make sure that all those duties are actually done by the town clerk in this town.
And that they're described appropriately and everything else, I was just sort of more answering, Scott, rather than saying we shouldn't look at it. It's a question of shorter or longer, more precise or more general, that's where I was following.
But we can get the ad out, right?
We can get that out other than the rate.
Well, I mean, if you guys agree, or if Sophia wants to go look quick and see what the average is for town
We
clerks.
just say that it's
Justin,
depending
can you
upon
pull it up?
experience.
The
I
most
think,
recent email.
Like Susan
quote.
said, it might be helpful to have a dollar amount in there, because, I mean, like when I apply
Could
for a
also-
job, if it's
Up
It's
to
not
you,
even-
up to you.
close to what I'm gonna, I don't even bother calling. If someone's gonna tell me it's a
Right,
15
so if we
hour,
put a value in people that are possibly worth it, are not even gonna call, I'd rather have somebody call.
I
Tell
have
them what the
a
rate
breakdown
is.
based on max minimum average.
Average of hourly, min of hourly, max of hourly, okay. So we're looking at average of salary, min of salary, max of salary, so we're gonna be looking at hourly.
Yeah, and if you need.
So it
more
looks like our
details-
average is 33.79, our low is 21.48, and our high is 72.
72!
$70 an hour?
There's an outlier in that one.
Yeah.
And that would be actually Marie's, because she does a minimal hours, but like she's a higher rate, 'cause she's a seasoned clerk. So check the other page, the other
Raw
tab.
data.
Yeah.
Well, I think the average being 33.79. So I'm looking at town clerk, and we have 21.48 is Cheshire, 29.72 Egremont, 30.49 Great Barrington.
2172, I remember?
29.72.
2972.
I'm just gonna read the first thing, make it less
Okay.
confusing, I'm gonna round. So 21 Cheshire, 30 Egremont, 30 Great Barrington, 26 New Marlborough, 32 Pelham. Sheffield's salaried, Stockbridge is salaried, West Stockbridge is the 72. A lot of salaried ones. And that's all the raw data I'm seeing.
I think we gotta hit 30 if we want certified. What?
I just updated with a bunch more, so there should be a lot more town clerks.
Well, I see a heck of a lot of salaries, no more
Okay, then
hourly
yes,
rates.
then most of them are salaried then too.
But the salaries are, if you look at the salary things, we're averaging 47,580, minimum of 22,500, maximum of 63,204. Oh, I read the wrong column.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna counter you without looking at it.
Average is 55,662, minimum is 15,500.
And salary would
High is
imply
83,000.
full-time or not necessarily? I mean, cause a 25 hours could be
Those kind
salary.
of details you can look through on the
Right.
raw data page, and if it does differ a lot, it'll show it there.
Well, some of the salaries are 20 hours.
Right, so
That's what
it'll
I'm
say.
One of the salaries, the low, the 15,500 is 11 hours.
55,000 is 11 hours? Wow.
15,000.
Oh, 15,000, okay. I heard 50.
What if we say, if the average town clerk hourly is 33.79,
I'm thinking we gotta at least go to 30 if we want a certified clerk.
at least.
And the answer to your question, Scott, I think is that, talking to a lot of people that are trying to hire, as well as seeing what's happened here, it used to be that jobs were hard to come by, and so people would call just to see. It's now, there are more jobs and fewer people applying for them, so it's kind of the employees market, which means that they may not even bother. Because if their attitude may be, if you're not listing the salary, it's because it's gonna be too low for me to bother to even call and find out. And I think that's, for example, what we saw with the transfer station. I don't know, has it run again?
I think it's in this week.
So we literally had, it didn't say a salary, and we got one response. That actually can only work one day. And I'm like, well, we're paying, I'm assuming it's because they assumed we were paying minimum wage. So now we're gonna run it and have the high in there up to, and see what, it's just started, so we don't know yet. But I just think if we don't put a number, a max number at least in there, we're not obligated to pay that, we're saying up to, I think we're just not gonna get any responses, because they're gonna assume it's minimum wage.
This is really, a usual thing as well. This is how I've done it since I've been doing recruitment. And a lot of the states are heading in this direction as well for pay transparency. So it's more than likely that all the organizations are gonna be required to post it as well.
So the question is, can we run the ad now?
That is the question.
So I would leave out records access officer that Justin added in his copy.
Okay. We can have that discussion, but we can leave it out of the ad for sure.
And then the copy that, what I said, Marie and I did, Susan actually talked with me about it yesterday too. That's the one I would.
2 non-consecutive days, because we originally.
Yeah, I mean, I've been pushed 2 non-consecutive days as much as anyone here. It's kind of a weird thing to have in an ad.
I think we want people to know what the schedule is and see who applies. And if we don't get any candidates with this one, then we go back and look at, maybe it was because of that or whatever. But I think people should know in the beginning that this is what it requires, so we don't get I can work on.
I mean, it's not hard to imagine someone saying, I'll
If
do
it's a
one 10-hour
requirement,
day.
have it in there automatically.
Right, I mean, I think it is. I think we should start this job off right, where it's not someone coming in and changing their schedule every 3 weeks, to what.
No, make hard lines.
So what,
Sure. You know how I feel about the format of job posts like this. Have I ever amended a job post for us before?
I don't think so.
I don't know, can we do 35, can we post it with 35 an hour? Do we need to put Tuesday to Friday?
Yeah, because I think, when I was talking with Susan yesterday, I know her and I are in agreement anyway, that Monday should not be an option. because
There's just too many
Monday
holidays.
So, and I think it's, Tuesday through Friday, so people know that,
If we're thinking 2 days a week, non-consecutive, if we take Monday off, then there's a lot fewer holidays that have to reschedule for it. I think it just makes things much simpler.
I gotta go.
Okay,
I've got a job I have got to be at. So I can't stay any longer, but it looks as though you've covered pretty much everything except for the minutes from
Yeah.
last week.
Do you want us to,
what about the
do
ambulance?
you want us?
So who?
Ambulance, why don't we, I mean, there's actually a lot we haven't, but let's, and I,
Well, I thought when we were discussing the ambulance about an hour ago that we were gonna let it ride until we discussed it with, like, Sean was gonna make a contact point.
He did.
Well, I understand that.
why don't we, I don't think we're ready to send letters, all things considered.
No, correct.
And I don't think, I mean, I'm running out of steam,
Okay.
But you have copies of Susan's suggestions in your file, so.
I just wanted to run that concept by you and how I came up with it to see what you guys thought, and we don't have to do it today. But I'm not wedded to it, I was just trying really hard to come up with a reasonable way to come up with a payment scheme that was fair to the towns and was gonna be responsive to the issues I know the ambulance company is trying to be responsive to, and to my conversation with Mark Gransky the other day about what Big Barrington is thinking. And I'm trying to be responsive, I wanna support the ambulance company, but I don't think that asking us to pay $750 when Barrington's paying like $112 a trip is reasonable either. So I just threw that out there as a way to think about it, and I'm open to anything else, but we had to start somewhere, and I was pretty sure that what we came up with is just a trip-based fee might tank for other reasons, based on feedback from different sources, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense to, I don't think there's
Yeah,
anything we
table a
can
bunch of
push
stuff.
off
Okay.
till next week, other than if we could get this out and, appoint board of registrars if you want, if we want to do that quickly.
No.
You can go, we
Because I
can just,
really have
we
to
can do it
look
with
at them.
only
I
two
could
of us,
stay here
that's okay.
forever.
We can.
What else do we have besides 35? Do we wanna finalize what the hours, what it says
Thank you
in
very
about
much.
the hours between the two, so that this can just go out?
We're doing Shoppers Guide, MMA, Indeed.
Yeah, usual spots.
You wanna do LinkedIn too? I'm gonna have to make a town a LinkedIn page.
I have one.
Oh, you do, okay. You wanna give me access? Okay.
I don't know how.
Can we do
What?
so we're changing 35, we're going with the Melissa and Marie version, we're changing to 35 an hour.
For how many hours a week?
Up to 10.
Up
Oh,
to
okay.
10. Well, that's another question if we look at the.
Going up to
Some of
30,
them
that's what the
will
budget
have,
recommends, is up to 10, but we have 100 hours
hourly.
built in for elections and stuff.
That's low compared to these other towns, but these other towns may be larger.
Right, and if their salary, if they didn't give me any kind of hourly data, I assumed it was like 40.
The lowest one I see is
Typical
Bernardston, which is 11 hours a week.
What's Egremont?
Egremont, I haven't gotten there. Egremont is 10.
I think Alfred's even fewer, but they're really tiny.
And West Stockton.
I mean, Marie has recommended 10 for an inexperienced clerk, so if we get an experienced one, they should be able to do it in less than 10, but you'd have 10 posted hours a week.
Mhm.
And that will allow me to give them some of the duties of the office assistant.
What's the deal on Saturdays?
Saturdays. I think let's just keep it during the week. And my recommendation for that is because I think there's, what's the way to say it? I think Saturdays are a problem with gossip and people getting really wound up in the, everything that goes on here and what we could talk about. And I think it's better to keep the new person out of all that.
So what's gonna happen with transfer station stickers?
You buy them online. We've never sold them on
We
Saturdays.
never sold them.
No.
We've gone back and forth on Saturdays. At one point, we were going to require Saturdays. I think it's a good time to be available to the public, but
Is that typical of most towns?
No towns.
Okay, yeah, kind of like, just personally, I don't expect to do town business on weekends. But
yeah, I
guess-
mean, but we have we're the only, we're not the only town, but we have town meetings on Saturday, which is not typical.
So the thought with the hours is it's Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesday would be maybe like a 9 to 1 or 10 to 2, and the Thursday would be 2 to 4 or whatever, 2 to whatever the 5 hours was.
They would just make it like those hours for someone who works Monday to Friday, for instance, would never be able to come in and see the clerk.
But they would be able to come in the evening. I mean, I'm the same way. I can't get to Sheffield because I work during the day, so I have to make arrangements to leave here to go to Sheffield because they're not
Yeah.
open on Saturday.
I just think it's an extra service to the public if we can make evening and or weekend availability, and
I was kind of leaning towards one, like if you did like 9 to 2, I'm just making up these hours, right? 9 to 2 on Tuesday. 5 hours from 7 back to 2 to 7 on Thursday. I made that up. It could be the same hours both days, but I'm just saying, I don't have an objection to a couple of evening hours. I don't want someone here till 10 PM. That, no.
Well, do we have time to do like a census, like a town census?
I have that information.
I mean, but like asking them questions, like when would you prefer the?
Let's-
Yeah.
let's come back to this next week. I need to think more about it.
But have you done town censuses before?
We've had,
Surveys, I mean?
Sophia, there was a point where we almost required Saturday hours for the town clerk.
During the last year, because there was a big debate about this, and I admit that I've gone both ways, but at this point, I'm trying to go simple.
And just keep in mind, if this person is reporting to me, it makes it difficult for me to be able to
Well, assist
supervise
them,
and
yeah.
assist them if they're here on a day when I'm not. And
Yeah, I
really
don't see the town clerk, I see the town clerk as a very independent position, they follow Mass General Law. They're not really working at the will of the select board or the town administrator. I need time, so.
But are we putting in this job description that the reporting note that's TA still?
Yes, technically, I mean, in terms of supervision, discipline, recommendations, absolutely. I mean,
Right.
there's always a recourse, I just don't think it's a position where it's not really, they follow Mass General Law and
So
state
does the
law.
building inspector though, but he still reports to me. You know, I think
I know.
if for a supervisory, I think Justin's getting us that.
No, I'm just ready, Scott's gone, I think we're shorthanded, I think it's time to adjourn. I would move to adjourn.
Okay.
Is there any,
Are you gonna do
what about the
finance?
minutes?
We'll do it next week.
Okay.
when
I
Scott's
mean, it's
here.
waited this long, so I don't think that's gonna make much difference. Yeah? The point.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not, nothing's urgent, if there was anything urgent, we'd take care of it, but I would move to adjourn.
Okay,
Is there a second?
sure, second, sorry.
Vote on the motion to adjourn.
Sure, let's adjourn, yes.
Yes, meeting adjourned at 2:11 PM.